I would be very, very surprised if the Iranians don't attack either with their missiles, their militias, or through direct terrorist activities.
You guys got what you wanted. You guys got your war. Are you expecting American troops to fight this war and die on your behalf? Or are you going to bring the Israelis back, tell them to put their fatigues on and get ready?
I can feel how sad you are. I can feel how difficult it is for you to see Israel teaching the Iranian regime a lesson,
that you're
Israel winning
that you're
on
sad
the
about the Iranian regime getting targeted. Because you hate the Jews and you hate Israel. You genocidal prick.
We should want regime change. How much we do is a different story. There are a lot of ways to achieve regime change. None of them involve boots on the ground.
And you think that it can come and dictate to a country 80 times
the answer of why your regime is enriching to military grade? Why it
Let me ask you, does Israel have nuclear weapons?
History books will write about your government the way that Americans read about the Nazis today. Trust me.
Thanks for coming to my podcast today, guys. If you wouldn't mind, please like, comment, and subscribe. We are reacting to Piers Morgan, which he just released 10 minutes ago in regards to Iran attacking U.S. bases after Trump strikes nuclear sites in Iran. Crazy times we're living in. Let's get it started, y'all.
President Trump kept the whole world guessing over whether the U.S. would strike Iran. And when it comes to what happens next, he still is.
This cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill.
Well, there are many targets left, the president says, and if Iran doesn't play ball, the United States will attack them too. But the administration took great care yesterday to make clear that the U.S. does not want a long war and that regime change is not the aim.
Is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. We don't want a regime change. We do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program, and then we want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here.
This mission was not, has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program.
The president, though, is not quite so clear. He posted last night, it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why shouldn't there be a regime change? Well, if the past 10 days show us anything, it's that any claim to understand Donald Trump's strategy based on these breadcrumbs is purely speculative. Only Trump knows his next move, and he likes it that way. The problem for those who are still soul-searching of whether to back him on striking Iran is that so is the damage the attacks have done. We don't yet know if Iran's nuclear facilities have been totally obliterated, as President Trump said. We don't yet know if Iran's massive stockpile of enriched uranium was wiped out in the US attack. Well, my view of the whole crisis is that too many people are basing their view of it on whether they're instinctively anti-Trump, anti-Israel, anti-war. Two things can be true at the same time. You can support a precision strike on Iran's nuclear facilities without supporting another long conflict in the Middle East. You can oppose Western involvement without supporting the Ayatollah. And you can support Israel's position against a nuclear Iran while unequivocally condemning the suffering it's now inflicting on the people of Gaza. Breaking news, the world is complicated. And after the events of the past few days, it's not about to get any simpler. I'd like to welcome my panel now, Anna Kasperin, executive producer and host of The Young Turks, Jonathan Conricus, retired lieutenant colonel and IDF spokesman, Dinesh D'Souza, host of the Dinesh.
Oh, I love Dinesh D'Souza. Let's see what he has to say. Always like hearing his opinion on this stuff.
D'Souza podcast, and retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, Assistant Secretary of State under George W. Bush. Well, General Kimmett, let me start with you. From a purely military perspective, how successful do you think, first, the Israeli strike on Iran has been, because it's ongoing, and secondly, the intervention by President Trump with American strikes?
I know that there were words being thrown around yesterday like obliterated, so on and so forth. But I believe when General Kane says partially destroyed at Fordow, I think that's really the best way to describe it We don't have the bomb damage assessment yet. I think we need to wait for a technical assessment rather than a rhetorical assessment. So let's give it time. But I believe that General Kane is right when he says partially destroyed. There may be some reattacks when the bomb damage assessment comes back and says, this is how much we've taken out, and to take it out to your standards, to the military standards, we need to reattack this method. So I think the next time we're going to see planes in the air is either for a reattack or to respond to an Iranian attack on American forces, embassies, or bases in the region.
How likely is it, do you think, that Iran will respond by directly attacking American servicemen and women?
Oh, we've seen this before. When Qasem Soleimani was targeted, they sent 12 ballistic missiles into Al-Assad base. There were a significant number of casualties. Thank God there were no deaths. But it's a prideful nation. It's part of the axis of resistance. It needs to demonstrate that it will resist. So certainly our force protection elements are in place, but I don't know. I would be very, very surprised if the Iranians don't attack either with their missiles, their militias, or through direct terrorist activities.
Anna Gasparin, your view of, well, the combined attacks, Israel and United States?
Well, I think Israel has been pushing for regime change in Iran. The claims that Iran was close to developing a nuclear weapon was false. Not only were they over a year away, according to Netanyahu himself, in being able to develop a nuclear weapon, they didn't even have a mechanism in order to deliver said nuclear weapon. This has been all about engaging in a regime change war. That's what this is. Anyone who's pretending like this is about nuclear weapons is lying to you. Again, the United States is forced to fight another war on behalf of Israel. And I just want to ask Conricus a question real quick, because I'm seeing a lot of videos of Israelis leaving Israel to go home to the United States or to Greece or to other European countries. You guys got what you wanted. You guys got your war. Are you expecting American troops to fight this war and die on your behalf? Or are you going to bring the Israelis back, tell them to put their fatigues on and get ready for a ground invasion? Because if they want regime change, they're going to need a ground invasion, and Americans shouldn't be forced to do it.
I will let Jonathan Conricus respond. All I would say, in relation to your super confidence that Iran was not planning to weaponize its enriched uranium, what else could they possibly have been planning, given they took the enrichment process, according to the Independent Atomic Energy Authority, they took their enrichment of uranium from the 3.5% required for civilian usage to 60% in the last few years. There is no other reason you would do that if you weren't at the very least wanting people to believe that you were going to be weaponizing your uranium. Otherwise, why do it?
Well, I mean, they were not enriching uranium under the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA, which unfortunately Trump took the pressure from Netanyahu to pull out of in 2018, which essentially cleared the way for Iran to enrich uranium. Now, yes, they enriched up to 60%. You need 90% in order to have the material necessary to build a nuclear weapon. However, I think what Iran was doing, considering the fact that they're in a region of thugs in Israel who clearly have been announcing that they want regime change in Iran, they wanted a deterrent. I think that's what they were doing. And as this war in Gaza, this genocide in Gaza continues, I think they wanted some form of a deterrent, much like Israel has with their over 90 nuclear weapons that they don't acknowledge, of course. They're not part of the non-proliferation treaty, even though Iran was. Just really interesting comparisons there.
Okay, General Kimmy, I know you have to leave us. Jonathan Conricus, I will come to you in one moment, but I just want to ask the General to respond to that. Is there a naivety by many on the left, you think, about Iran's intentions with this enriched uranium? Because look, I oppose the Iraq War as a newspaper editor in the UK very vociferously. It cost me my job in the end, actually. But I think I was vindicated over time by subsequent events. But here I just looked at that Independent Atomic Energy report and I thought, what else could they possibly be doing? If you enrich your uranium at that level and you have enough to build potentially 10 atomic bombs, I don't know what else Iran wanted the world to think it was doing. Enough about 9 to 5. What about the most important bit?
I think we need to recognize that for the past 30 years, Prime Minister Netanyahu has been warning the world about the Iranian nuclear threat. What is different about today? Listen, the excuses and the rationale that was used are the same ones that could have been used 20 years ago. Fact remains, October 7th changed everything. The axis of resistance and the ring of fire was a deterrent to Israel ever since it was established. Hundreds of thousands of weapons, hundreds of thousands of missiles and warheads were aimed at Israel and could, as was said at Thermopylae, could blot out the sky and overwhelm any kind of air defense system that the Israelis had put up. Since October 7th, the Israelis have methodically taken away and torn away and destroyed most of that capability. Deterrence was off. This is a once-in-a-lifetime generation for the Israelis to attack, and every Israeli pilot for the past 30 years has wanted to be the first one in the cockpit to end that nuclear program. The fact that the Ring of Fire was destroyed and it was now a manageable threat from Iran, no longer deterrence. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and Netanyahu took that opportunity.
Final question before I let you go.
But it wasn't Israeli pilots. It was American pilots. Let's be clear about that. American pilots did this incredibly risky mission. Luckily, none of them got hurt. But this is going to start a full-blown war with Iran, a war that the United States should not be fighting.
Michael, I've been hearing that for quite some time, that it was orchestrated and they knew it was coming. But obviously, I don't know. But I've even heard conservatives say that as well.
On behalf of any foreign country, including Israel.
Okay.
It's unacceptable.
All right.
Unacceptable.
We don't actually.
How many years do American taxpayers and our members of our military need to be slaves to the Israeli government? I need someone to answer that question.
Okay. Listen,
we need to focus all of our resources on just fixing our own country. Our streets are loaded with illegals and criminals and homeless people and drugs all over the streets. We have a drug epidemic. We need to focus on all those problems first, not these other countries.
I know General
a genocidal regime.
Hang on. General Kelly does have to go. I just want to ask you before you go, just one last question. Would you, as a military commander, have been comfortable about what the IDF has been doing at the behest of the Israeli government in the last 3 months in Gaza?
Well, I'd rather answer the question directly of Gasparin. Look, as somebody who's worn a uniform for 30 years, the conditions that had been set by the Israeli defense and the Israeli Air Forces and Mossad meant that this was not only the most lethal attack since Hiroshima, but it was also the safest attack. The fact remains, the IAF had wiped out the air defenses. Mossad had put a lot of pressure. This was the safest operation, not to include the Great Deception Plan, where President Trump used Winston Churchill's axiom that the truth is so important, it must be a bodyguard of lies. And I would tell you right now, there's not an American pilot that was worried about this attack and had anything but pride for this attack.
Okay, and just finally, the answer to my question?
If it was about Gaza, again, I think that I certainly don't commend the killing of innocents and civilians. But you know that when the enemy wraps itself around civilian targets, civilian facilities,
you support genocide.
That facility is now no longer. It is now a military target. I don't necessarily see at this point that it's genocide, for the simple reason that the Gazans and Hamas have an opportunity.
Have you guys heard that they're starving the people in Gaza? I don't know. I haven't dug into this, but that's what I've been hearing. They've been preventing food and resources for them to eat, and there's like kids that are starving. Let me know in the comments.
Opportunity to end that.
If so, that's wrong.
That's to return the hostages and end this carnage. In previous actual genocides,
that's a lie, and you know it. You know it. They're shooting and killing civilians at humanitarian aid hubs dozens of them on a daily basis. Literal children are getting shot in the face.
Piers, it is a good time.
It's a genocide. It's a genocide.
Piers, you are right. It is a good time for me to leave.
Okay.
I thought we were going to have a discussion,
See you later.
not propaganda.
Okay.
Thank you.
General Kimmett, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much. We're going to be joined on the panel by Kaveh Afrasiabi, a former advisor to Iran's nuclear negotiating team, who was arrested in the US for alleged spying before being pardoned by Joe.
What happened to Russia, Ukraine, by the way? We have not heard a damn thing lately. All I know is Putin has come to the table and said he wants a peace agreement. We'll see what Zelensky does.
Biden. But before we speak to him, I want to talk to Jonathan Conricus. A lot has been said in the last few minutes. What's your response?
Well, hello, everyone. I can, even though I've never met the person who is constantly interrupting others, I don't think we've ever even communicated on X, but I can feel your frustration. No, don't interrupt me. I can feel your frustration. I can feel how sad you are. I can feel how difficult it is for you to see Israel teaching the Iranian regime a lesson and Israel winning on the battlefield.
About the Iranian regime getting targeted. Because you hate the Jews and you hate Israel.
I can understand that you're having a tough time dealing with reality.
You have to actually address the substance of my argument. Why are IDF soldiers shooting and killing children at humanitarian aid hubs? You genocidal prick.
And frankly,
can you answer
really,
that
your
question?
talking points are tired.
The whole world
I'm not
sees
here
you
to
guys
answer
for what
your
you are.
questions,
Just keeping
Mrs.
it real.
Interrupter. I'm not here to answer your questions.
your own damn
Last time I
wars.
checked, this wasn't your channel. This wasn't your channel, and you've
Biggest
done nothing but interrupt
in the
and talk
world, constantly
nonsense.
taking from the
You've
American
only been
people,
talking nonsense so
both
far,
in the
and I've been
form of
sitting here
American
and listening
lives and
quite
in the form of
politely
American
to your
taxpayer
nonsense,
dollars.
and you
Pay for
keep
your own
on
damn
screaming
weapons.
All right,
over
guys,
me
we need to
as if
hear
you're right.
individually
Disgusting.
talking. Don't
I
talk
can't
over each
stand-
other. There's no point.
I can't stand these people and their disgusting
No,
lies.
but
As
excuse
children
me,
are
I
getting
was talking,
slaughtered
and then you
by
started
the dozens
interrupting, and you're
daily
screaming.
at these
You're
humanitarian aid hubs.
impolite.
I can speak over
You're
you
not even
endlessly.
facts-based.
All right,
You're
Anna,
just
listen,
screaming
we can't have a
nonsense at
debate,
me, and
Anna,
it's not going to
we
work.
can't have a debate if you don't let Jonathan
At least let Americans are
No,
forced
at
to
least
fund
let
this
Jonathan-
genocide.
like
It's
let Jonathan
disgusting.
let Jonathan say what he wants to say, then you can respond.
Listen, Piers, this isn't going to work. Clearly, you can see that she's here to instigate.
If we are funding with our tax dimes and resources any killing in other countries that doesn't actually benefit the American people, I'm 100% against it.
Talk, please.
She's here to instigate. She is here to instigate. She constantly interrupts. That is not a way to have a meaningful discussion. And if I'd ask you to kindly, put her in place so that at least I could say 2 or 3 sentences.
Put her in place.
That's the first thing. Now I can understand the frustration of so many people that are Israel haters, disguising as liberals, disguising as humanitarians. I can see and feel, and I even have compassion for your feelings that you see the great empire that the Iranians built against us. It is being decimated piece by piece, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. And it must be frustrating. It must be frustrating to see
because
Israel
you guys have
defend
occupied the
itself
American government,
after a
obviously.
Hamas attack on
But all
October
those
the
boomers
7th.
are going to be
And
gone
it must
one day,
be
and I can't
frustrating
wait.
to see Israel persisting and winning and defeating our enemies despite the efforts of the likes of you and many others who have teamed up against Israel. And I can understand the frustration, but guess what? It's not going to help. Your opinion isn't true. It is not reality-based. Just like you just said in the beginning that Israelis are fleeing. On the contrary, Israelis are lining up, and there's actually a national airlift.
Let me know what you guys think about the Hamas-Israel war. I haven't really dug into that, but I'm against all innocent people dying. Let me know what you guys think.
Get home. There's an Israeli national airlift to get Israelis home from all over the world, from Greece and from Cyprus, so that they can come home to be with their families as Israel is being attacked.
Go back to Israel. Put your uniforms on.
All right,
boys and girls.
I'm now
Get
going to
ready
go.
for war.
I'm going to bring in Dinesh here, and I would appreciate if everyone just let each other talk. Otherwise, the viewers can't hear a damn thing. Dinesh, thank you for your patience in waiting so long to speak. First of all, what is your? I mean, look, there's a lot of speculation about what Donald Trump may do next. I happen to think that he is instinctively anti-war. I don't think there's any chance he wants to put any boots on the ground here. I think if he can make it one and done with the strikes that he ordered, I think he would be happy with that, as he was with the strikes against Syria, against Soleimani, against Baghdadi. You know, he's a guy who likes to go in, targeted and out. I don't think he wants any kind of prolonged war. However, once you do something like Trump ordered at the weekend, it can be out of your hands. It really depends how Iran responds. What do you think is going to happen here?
I think that we are learning that Trump represents a repudiation of the Bush tradition, but he doesn't represent a repudiation of the Reagan tradition. Trump is quite willing to use force, but he uses it discriminately, he uses it quickly and decisively. And Trump's own rhetoric very much supports this. I think that a lot of this anxiety is because of the bad lessons that came out of the Iraq war. But Iran is not Iraq, and Trump is not Bush. And the fictional weapons of mass destruction in Iraq are not the same as functioning nuclear facilities enriching uranium in Iran. So I think that it's important to look at this situation for what it is. Now, who can argue that the world is not better off when Iran doesn't have nuclear capacity? Whether there's a 50% chance that they were going to get there, a 70% chance, a 90% chance, it would be really good to have a 0% chance that they could get there at all. This is a fanatical militant regime. It is different than places like China and Russia in that it has always had an ideology of global involvement, global destruction, global terrorism, death to America. You don't have to seek for a motive here. They deliver it to you from the Iranian parliament on a pretty daily basis. So the United States has very definite interests here. The interest is not necessarily in regime change, although I, for one, would welcome it. Who can argue that Iran would not be better off than under the mullahs? And I think the big losers here are, in fact, Iran, Hamas, but also the global left. The global left has partnered in a way with these Hamas radicals. And so they are taking a tremendous beating here. All their idiotic campus protests are for naught. So this is why we're getting all this screaming and hysteria from Anna, because she realizes that not only is Iran going down, so is our own ideology.
I don't like watching children get slaughtered by a genocidal regime that we're unfortunately funding with our taxpayer dollars and with military weapons. That's what I don't like. Look at Conricus. Look at how flippant he is when it comes to children getting killed. That's the kind of person you are, Conricus. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The international community sees it. And honestly,
assaults against me are not going to work.
It is a stain on America's reputation.
You are not going to have any impact on me.
Modern-day Nazis today in their genocide against Palestinians.
Okay, Anna, you made your views about Jonathan clear.
You disgusting terrorist.
All right, can we try and keep things, please, less ad hominem? It's a bit pointless to screaming abuse at him. Let me bring in, if I may.
I mean, what do you call a regime that slaughters children willy-nilly?
You can have your arguments about it. And by the way, I share a lot of your arguments, but I think abusing another guest on a panel for as long as you've been doing is a bit pointless and self-defeating. I don't think viewers like it.
You don't think he deserves a little bit of abuse, considering what he's been in
Sure, and you've given him more than a little bit of abuse.
Actually, do not.
Let me bring in.
Let
me bring in our other guest who hasn't said a word. Let me bring in Kaveh Afrasiabi. I mean, the big question I would have for Iran is, why were you enriching uranium to 60% if you had no intention of building nuclear weapons to a weaponized degree? It makes no sense.
Mr. Morgan, I'm very unhappy with how you mischaracterized me a minute ago. I was not charged as a spy for Iran. I was an international affairs consultant for Iran's mission for 13 years under UN norms and guidelines. And in the last 24 hours of the first Trump administration, he decided that I'm in violation of US law and brought these phony charges against me. What I was doing was in line with all the other consultants for other country missions, none of whom have registered as a foreign agent.
Okay, but everything I said was accurate. So let's get, look, everything I said was accurate. So
no, you are not accurate, and you're not putting yourself up in legal
you were accused of spying, and you were pardoned by Joe Biden.
I was not accused of being a spy, and I will bring a major defamation lawsuit on you.
Well, fine. Let me ask you two questions. Let me ask you two questions.
Let me answer your question.
Let me ask you two questions.
I will bring a major.
Let me ask ask you, can you stop talking?
I have Harvard for 30 years.
Let me,
I
please.
am in Supreme Court against Harvard right now.
Fine.
And I will bring a major lawsuit.
I'm sure you will. I look forward to receiving it. Let me ask you two. Let me
answer your question.
Let me ask you two questions first.
Okay.
Is it true that you were accused of spying?
No, absolutely not.
You were?
No, I was not.
What were you accused of?
I sued successfully the UPI.
I said, is it true you were accused of spying?
Against me.
Is it true you were accused of it?
No, absolutely not. I was accused of violating the Foreign Agent Registration Act, FARA, which requires registration, but not for people who work under the UN mandate.
Right. But you were arrested.
I was arrested for 24 hours.
Okay.
I denied the charges. I represented myself.
Fine. I didn't say you were found guilty.
No, you accused me of working as a spy for Iran, which is an outrageous lie.
I didn't accuse you of anything.
No, you said that I've been charged with being a spy.
No, I didn't. I said you were accused of it.
Yes, you did. You're a damn liar.
I did not say that.
The whole world heard you.
I did not say that.
And
when you watch this back, you will regret your outburst because you misheard me.
I will bring a major lawsuit on your head.
Oh, you know what? Do what you like, mate. I couldn't give a...
How many times is this guy going to repeat himself? He is crying like a little kid.
You know, I'm a plaintiff against Harvard. I represented myself
Good for you.
For 30 years.
Do you want to do an interview or not?
Jury trial. I'm in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Do you want to do an interview about what's happening or not? Or do you want to keep shouting?
I will answer your question. I will answer your
question.
Well,
answer it then.
First, what the U.S. did was a violation of the IAEA statute prohibiting armed strikes against nuclear facilities, which should have been immediately condemned by the governing board of the IAEA, just as the EU 10 days ago.
But that wasn't my question, was it?
IAEA.
That wasn't my question. You said you were going to answer my question. You're not answering my question. My question was, why did Iran enrich its uranium stocks to 60%? That is my question.
I answer you by first of all pointing out that what you said, that IAEA says that there's no other purpose for it, it's a lie. There's no such a thing in IAEA report. The IAEA report of March 2025 says, and I quote, since February 2025, Iran has been facilitating the implementation of a strengthened safeguard at its facilities. Now, is that the profile
of a nuclear? And then came another report which said that Iran was obfuscating and not allowing access to international supervisors.
Let me answer.
Let's not forget the last damning report of the Board of Governors.
Part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. How about you shut up? Okay, go ahead.
60% enrichment has medical uses.
Are you running the show, Mrs. Angry Screaming Lady?
This does not represent a violation of the IAEA safeguards. All the facilities that were bombed were under international safeguards. And it should have been condemned immediately because it's also a violation of the UN Charter, because Iran has not threatened the US. US engaged in a unilateral act of militarism against Iran.
Your supreme leader has
literally... Are we going to get to an answer of why the Iranian regime was enriching to military-grade uranium? Are we going to hear why, Mr. Negotiator? And again, I hold you in high respect because I think you and the people like you, I think you have done a tremendous outstanding job. A tremendous outstanding job. For 25 years, you have facilitated for the Iranian regime to develop nuclear weapons, and it is through the skill and rhetoric of people like you that this has gone on for so long. So, can we get to the answer?
I'm just going to say something. If there's proof that they were inventing nuclear weapons, just show us the proof. I know they're talking about what they were Iranian stock or something like that, but I want just proof.
Why the Iranian regime is enriching.
And you think that it can come and dictate to a country?
Can we get to an answer of why your regime is enriching to military grade? Why it builds a heavily hardened facility underground, 80 meters underground? You don't do that if your intentions are peaceful, Mr. Negotiator. You don't do it if your intentions are peaceful. You have nothing to hide and you have no reason to build for
facilities. You are such a hypocrite. You think that Israel is exceptional, is a chosen
the
people.
last
You have the
report
right
of the
to rule
Atomic
the Middle
Agency
East.
Board of
And you
Governors
know,
stated clearly Iran is in violation.
very critical
Iran is
of
not
Iran on
allowing
women's rights
international
and
inspectors
democracy
to
and
come
all
and
these
see.
things.
And Iran has enough fissile material for 10 nuclear bombs. That was the smoking gun that eventually caused President Trump to understand the severity of the situation. Yes, and that was what tipped the scales.
You know, you just
that was what
all right, let me ask a question. Look, people can't. If you all talk over each other, nobody can hear a word anybody says.
Well,
let me ask you, Mr. Afra CRB. Let me ask you this: do you deny, for the record, that Iran has sponsored terrorism through Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah going back several decades?
I've been very critical of Iran's support for Hamas. I wrote an article right after October 17, USA Today, denouncing Hamas's ISIS-type attack on innocent civilians. I've been very critical of Iran's obsession with Israel in various books, including Trump and Iran right behind me, which has been highly praised in Foreign Affairs, as well as many other articles. I have called on Iran to stop its Israel phobia, because it's not in the national interest of Iran to be so obsessed with Israel, which incidentally, in 1984, I've written a book on an Israeli operative, Amiram Nir, who was singularly responsible for shipping out missiles to Iran defending against Saddam Hussein. Iran should be thankful to Israel for the support that was given to it to safeguard it against Saddam.
You've now said something. If you don't mind me being, you've now said something genuinely interesting and surprising and constructive to the debate, right? Which is you've acknowledged that Iran should not have been sponsoring terrorism with groups that are wedded to eradicating Israel off the face of the earth. And that's been the problem.
Absolutely not.
But that has been...
Iran should have never said Israel should be wiped off the map, because it's contrary to Iran's national interest. The mullahs have done a lot of things wrong, and I'm on record. Well,
that's good to hear you say it.
Huh?
It's good to hear you say that.
No, but I cooperated selectively with Iran for the sake of a nuclear agreement, which was a win-win and a non-proliferation net plus. And President Trump made a terrible mistake, and Netanyahu's pressure to withdraw to set the stage for
the problem is, look, I've got to jump in because we're running out of time, but the problem is that the last report made it clear that the Iranian regime has been obfuscating and lying and hiding stuff and stopping them from doing their job. So you have a significantly enriched uranium program going up nearer and nearer to weapons grade, and they're not allowing the inspectors to do their job. You put the two and two things together and you get 4 if you add 2 and 2 together. Let me ask Dinesh.
You're wrong.
Let me ask Dinesh. Hang on.
Okay.
Dinesh, you wanted to say something quickly.
I wanted to make a point about the issue of who is responsible for what. Now, when regimes start wars, they are responsible for the fate of their own children. I mean, if I come and do a home invasion on you, right, and threaten your children, and you strike back, and then I go grab my own kids and stick them in front of me and say, don't shoot, because I'm holding my own kids. The truth of it is I am putting my kids in jeopardy, not you. You have every right to retaliate against me. And
you better use that standard when Israeli civilians get killed.
I am the one
you better
who
use
is
the
putting those
same
civilians
standard,
in
Dinesh.
danger.
You better use the same standard, but you won't. You won't use the same standard.
Let me finish.
I want to hold you. I want to hold the panel here for 2 minutes. I want to just have a quick conversation with Ambassador John Bolton, the National Security Advisor to Donald Trump.
He is the worst. Who else hates and cannot stand John Bolton? The warmonger neocon himself, folks.
During his first term. Mr. Bolton, thank you for joining me. I realize you only have a few minutes here.
Warmonger.
Well, just Mr. Bolton, if you could just tell me, what is your assessment of where we are right now? You have the Israeli strikes now, the America strikes, many people fearing that Iran's going to react in a spectacular fashion by way of retaliation. Others think their capability to do that has been severely diminished. People fearing there may have to be a ground invasion and so on. Where do you think we really are here?
Well, I think we've made a good first start in destroying the Iranian nuclear weapons program and its ballistic missile program. I wish the U.S. and Israel had gone in together much earlier, but we are where we are. The president finally made the right decision. Now's the time to finish the job. And finishing the job to me means overthrowing the Ayatollahs. There's not going to be peace and security in the Middle East while this regime is in power. President, I don't think is there yet, although he's beginning to signal maybe he is. Doesn't require boots on the ground. There are lots of ways to get to regime change. The population is extraordinarily dissatisfied with the Ayatollahs, and I think you could see fragmentation at the top. That kind of instability is what you need to bring the regime down.
But isn't the lesson we've learned from Iraq and Afghanistan is wherever we try to effect regime changes, it tends not to work. And then, in fact, the most effective way is to allow the people of a country, as we saw with Syria last December, actually doing the regime change themselves. Isn't that I think actually that's what Donald Trump was indicating in his tweet. I think that he was indicating a regime change coming from within, from the dissatisfied people of Iran, as you rightly put it. Not that there should be American interference facilitating any kind of regime change.
Well, there are two aspects to this. First is the removal of the existing authoritarian regime. The second is the creation of the substitute. I think we did the right thing in removing the Taliban and the right thing in removing Saddam Hussein. And in Syria, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group didn't prevail over Assad without extraordinary Turkish help. So that's how it goes. Now the question is, how do the people of the country affected establish their own regime? And it clearly is the case that they should be primarily responsible. I said back at the time of the overthrow of Saddam Hussein that the U.S. role should be to hold the ring around the outside, prevent the Iranians from interfering, and basically say to the people of Iraq, here's a copy of the Federalist Papers. This may be helpful to you. Why don't you form your own government? You don't enhance political maturation by making decisions for other people. You enhance political maturation by making them make decisions for themselves, including mistakes from which they learn.
Donald Trump is making slightly ambiguous statements at the moment. Would you want him to be clearer about his intentions, or is this all part of him not letting the other side know what he really wants to do?
Well, I don't think he knows what he really wants to do. I think he's just going around the circle now to see what he can come up with. But as others have observed, one very important change that I think he's making is yesterday the vice president said, we do not want regime change in Iran. That is absolutely wrong. We should want regime change. How much we do is a different story. And I think Trump obviously is not going
to stop installing puppet governments just because we don't like them. I understand taking out the nuclear assets if that's the truth, but no, we don't need to install a puppet government like we did in Ukraine.
Contemplate putting troops in. But I want to say again, there are a lot of ways to achieve regime change. None of them involve boots on the ground necessarily. This is a different context. You have a very educated population in Iraq. The young people, 60% are under 30. They know they could have a different life. They can see it across the Gulf in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Doha. I think things would move in a very positive direction without particularly significant U.S. involvement.
Ambassador Bolton, I appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much. I know you've got a busy day. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Anna Kasparian, I mean, here's my sort of issue, I guess, with a lot of people on the left in relation to this story, is that you end up sounding like you're siding. Hang on one second, please. Please allow me to talk to different members of the panel. Is it that on the left you end up sounding like you're, shilling for a vile regime? The Iranian regime oppresses women. Well, hang on. Let me hang on. Is it they oppress women?
I know what you're going to say. I know. I hate the regime in Iran.
Right.
I hate the regime.
So why wouldn't you want it changing?
I hate the mullahs. There are Armenians living in Iran right now who hate the mullahs. Okay, but regime change should not be spurred by the United States and Israel, which wants to install a puppet government on their behalf. And by the way, the Iranians know that. They know that. Polling indicates the vast majority of them want regime change. They don't want it to be done by Israel. You have to be clear about that, because I think there's an intentional misframing or false framing of what's happening in Iran right now and what the population actually wants. Now, with that out of the way, my issue, Piers, is that the United States has been expending its resources and has been essentially sending its soldiers to die in wars on behalf of Israel, a country that
Not a
goaded us
single
into
American soldier
invading
has been
Iraq on a
wounded. Come
false
on, be serious.
pretense
Don't be
of
such a
weapons of
demagogue.
mass destruction.
Be
4,000 of
be
our
factual.
soldiers
Not
died
a
in
single
Iraq.
American
You didn't send
soldier
a
has
single
even been
IDF
wounded.
soldier. Not one IDF soldier was sent to Iraq. Our soldiers died on your behalf, Conricus, on your country's behalf.
Not at all.
And I'm sick
Not
of it.
at all.
I'm sick of it.
Nothing
You
to
guys
do
are
with it.
committing
Israel
a
had
genocide
nothing
right
to do
now,
with it.
yet you're a
And you're
nuclear power
you're
that's not in
confiscating
the
things,
non-proliferation
and your
agreement.
hatred
Why?
towards
Why is
Israel
that?
is
How come you
getting
guys
the
get to play
better
by
of your
completely
judgment.
different rules?
Your
You're
blind
genocidal.
hatred
You're
towards
let him
Israel
disgusting.
is
answer.
The
getting the
world
better
sees
of
Let
your
him
you
answer.
guys for what you are.
capabilities.
Let him
Love
answer.
the people of Israel.
Let him
Hate
answer.
the government of Israel.
Let him
You're a
answer.
genocidal government.
Your hatred
You guys
of
Let
make
him
me
Islam
sick.
is
answer,
so
Anna.
You make me
profound and
sick.
so deep.
Let
You
him answer.
make me sick.
Let him
The
answer.
entire international community looks at your government
Let him
and gets
answer.
sick even
Take a
thinking about
breather.
it.
We know that he makes you
So
sick,
maybe
but let him
calm
answer.
yourself, for God's sake. We're trying to have a conversation here,
The
and
history
I'm trying
books
to
will write
answer
about
what you're
your
saying,
government
but you're
the
not
way
even
that Americans read about the
acknowledging me
Nazis
as
today.
a
Trust
person.
me.
Instead of
Modern
just
day
screaming
Nazis.
at me and looking
Modern
like a
day
lunatic
Nazis.
who
Not
just
Nazi.
keeps on
That's
screaming at
crazy.
other people, could you for a
I
second
speak on
allow
behalf
me
of
to
all
say
those
two
children who are now
sentences?
orphaned.
No,
all
you
those
don't
children
speak
who
on
were
behalf of
born
anybody
in
but
Gaza in
yourself.
an
You weren't
open-air
elected.
prison
You
and
don't
had to
represent
die in
anybody.
Gaza
You're a
because of
talk
your
show host, and you
disgusting,
don't
belligerent
represent
military.
anybody. You've
Yeah.
never stood for anything. You've
Genocidal.
never fought for anything. You're a talk show
Genocidal.
host, and you don't represent
The whole
anybody.
international
And the
community
fact that
sees
you
for
think
what
that
you
it's
are.
effective to accuse me of all kinds of nonsense, and you think that that will rattle me, I'm sorry
No,
to disappoint
everyone
you.
knows.
Many and better
you know
people
too.
before you have tried, and they have all
Right.
failed. But let me tell you something. Your hatred
Let me say
is
it
so
in a way that
showing.
you'll understand.
Your
The
hatred of
international community
Israel
looks
is
at people like
blinding
you and they say
You're not able to
terrorists, okay?
distinguish
That's what they
between
see.
different
Terrorists.
situations,
You're
and
a
you
terrorist.
find yourself supporting a genocidal
Endless
regime
numbers
just
of
out
children
of your burning
slaughtered
hatred
at the
towards
hands of the
Israel.
IDF and the
I
Israeli
think that
government.
is
Morgan,
so
can I ask you a
compelling for
question?
people to
Okay.
see
I
how
hate
you
the government of
behave.
Israel.
Okay, don't all start
I do.
talking,
I
otherwise I'm going
despise
to
the
literally
government
give
of
up.
Israel.
All right, let me
Despise
just look. Let me
And
go.
I feel bad for the people of
Let
Israel
me
who are now
let me
under
go
threat
back, if
because
I
of the
may, to
belligerence of your
Carve.
government
Let me ask
and
Carve
military.
this question. Carve, in an ideal
Piers.
world, Carve, do you think it's right, as John Bolton said, that the young
Piers, this
population?
isn't fair. She's been screaming over me the entire conversation. I've said one sentence, and
Yeah.
I've been sitting here for 45 minutes.
I agree.
I would really like to say one sentence without
Keep
her
crying about
screaming like some
Okay.
crazy person,
Well, then I think-
totally.
Let's see if she'll let
totally
you.
consumed by her
You guys
hatred.
are such dictums.
Right. So
Oh,
I would like to say
Yeah.
one thing.
the
And
young,
please,
the young woman
could you,
speaking
you know,
over
contain
me. Yeah.
yourself
Go
for,
ahead,
for,
Paul,
for
please.
20 seconds?
Wow, Anna Kasparian is losing her mind in this video, folks.
Could you contain yourself for 20 seconds, please?
ahead.
Like you've been screaming
Yes,
and
Ann.
ranting all over this debate,
And you are correct.
and it's not meaningful. People don't hear
I
what
Hope
you
you're having a great day, by the way.
I
say.
have
They
a
don't hear
visceral
me.
reaction to
Nobody
people
makes
like
sense
you.
of it.
Sorry.
So
Please let him talk.
do me a favor, and allow me at least to say two sentences. The Iranian regime now is struggling like any dictatorship.
Yeah, I don't believe she's lying. I just think she could go about it in a better way. I mean, I am anti-war. I don't think we should be in other countries' mess unless it's coming on our own homeland. I'm 100% against this. Actually, I was against what Trump did, but it seems like none of our people died, and he only targeted their missile areas, I believe, or nuclear. But yeah, I'm against it. That's just my
With a
opinion.
new and dynamic situation. They're not used to not being in the driving seat. They're not used to not dictating in events. And for the first time in 25 years, Israel is taking the initiative. And Israel has now peeled back the layers of the ring of fire around Israel. And Israel is, yes, and I can say this not officially as a spokesperson, but this is what I understand. Israel definitely is trying to bring about regime change in Iran. Why? Because it would be better for the entire region, for the Iranian people, and definitely for Israel.
But
It
many
would
people,
open the
but
path
many
to
people.
prosperity.
All right, but Jonathan, many people
Why-
also.
why
Hang
answer
on,
that,
hang
please?
on. Many people, Jonathan, also think there
Greater
should be.
Israel
Hang
Project.
on!
Look into it. That's
For
what this is
goodness
about.
sake. Many people, Jonathan, also think there should be regime change in Israel because of what it's been doing in Gaza. So,
Layla, amazing statement. Peace over war always may God bless all nations towards justice, understanding, and healing. The world needs more compassion, not conflict. 100% agree. And it's our CIA and feds, especially in the last administration, who we're going into these other countries or Obama installing these puppet governments. That's exactly what they like to do, these neocon warmongers. And especially in Ukraine, they installed Zelensky, as we saw.
There's a lot of talk of regime change
elections,
generally.
Piers.
Yeah, well, okay, but
but that's called elections.
Sure.
And I have many friends. I have friends and family who feel the same way, and I have others who feel differently. And luckily for Israel, luckily for us who live here, and luckily for the 2 million Arabs who live in Israel, Israel is a democracy, and we get to vote, and we get to vote what we like. Currently, we have a government who I think is definitely should be criticized for many things and how it has managed those situations since October 7. But I think the government and the prime minister has done a very brave and good thing for the future of the region in attacking Iran.
Okay, let me give the final word to our Iranian guest. Over to you, Kaveh, for your final word here.
Well, real quick, I want to comment on Lelina. Sorry if I said it wrong. I 100% agree. I actually dug into it recently, and it does seem like Israel does own a lot of our government. I'm for every country defending themselves, but I am not for other countries being in our politicians' pocket. And it does seem that is exactly what is happening. And I got called an anti-Semite just because I said that. I don't understand how that's racist just to say you want our politicians to be focusing just on America and our interests.
Mr. Morgan, it is abundantly clear that two nuclear armed states are ganging up on another state, their regional rival, using a lame excuse of proliferation in order to cause regime change, partly because Iran is part of a new multipolar world.
But so does China, by the way. There's all these countries are in the pockets of our politicians, not gonna lie, especially China.
Member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, part of the BRICS nation, and the United States has been seeking a rollback of the historic Iranian Revolution for 46 years, and now are seizing on this opportunity in a very systematic fashion, using their mouthpieces such as your guests here in order to provide the stage setting for this rollback strategy. And all these spinners like the warmonger, who Mr. Trump himself labeled as a warmonger, who didn't like a war that, didn't start in the world, is not cheering Mr. Trump because Mr. Trump is implementing his script for regime change in Iran. This is a travesty of international law, a violation of the UN Charter. Most of the world leaders have condemned it. And Iran, by the way, has paralyzed Israeli.
Actually, I don't think that's true.
Israel's economy is paralyzed.
They haven't condemned it.
I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true that most world leaders have condemned it at all.
Financial hemorrhage, and hundreds of Iranian missiles have landed in Israel and have penetrated the paper dome, which you call Iron Dome. And you talk about regime change. Go look at the destructions in Tel Aviv that's making Tel Aviv into another Gaza.
Let's talk again in 6 months and let's hear what you say then. Let's talk again in 6 months.
I'm going to leave it there.
Let's talk in 6 months.
Israel, the tiny inconsequential.
Let's talk in 6 months and we'll see.
I've got to end it there because honestly, I am completely and utterly.
You are hallucinating.
Okay. I tell you what, I'm hallucinating. I am hallucinating.
Just the other day.
I am hallucinating. Okay.
The only regime change will be the genocidal.
Okay.
That's the only regime.
Okay. I am hallucinating. I'm exhausted.
All right, guys, it's about to end on that. So I'm going to actually connect to X right now because I got some other left and right side people speaking about the Iran conflict. Crazy interview. It was off the edges. They could not let each other finish talking. I do understand both sides. Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy times we live in right now. Historic times, biblical times, as I always say. Oops, I reconnected to that. Sorry, guys. Let me just connect X real quick. All right. I love Steve Bannon. He's been speaking on the conflict, and they just posted a video today. But first, we're going to start on the heckling hens on The View. The dumbest people on television, guys, the View. I just love to get crazy clips because, they say crazy things. Let's see what they said this morning.
That Trump was going to make a decision on Iran within the next 2 weeks. That's what he said. Remember that? Okay. He was going to give diplomatic negotiations more time to play out. And then less than 48 hours later, this attack was underway. So what changed? And what was he actually trying to accomplish here?
I mean, look, the 2 weeks measure was clearly a bit of a head fake. I mean, not entirely. I wouldn't say the decision was finally made. All indications are he didn't actually make the decision to so-called pull the trigger until Saturday, you know, and then the attack commenced. But obviously, all the wheels were already in motion. In fact, the wheels were in motion a full week beforehand. Shortly after the Israelis made their attack the previous Friday, the president saw it as a sweeping success. I mean, he was very excited about it. I spoke to him that morning, and he said, this is excellent. He was no longer saying the Americans weren't involved. He was taking credit for American weaponry being part of it. He was clearly ready to go, but there was a last-minute push for some kind of a diplomatic resolution. He really wanted that moment. I mean, I think he thought he could have a Kim Jong-un moment with the supreme leader of Iran and have a big deal right before the bombs were going to drop. The Iranians were not engaging at all, and he made the decision.
The View can never, ever give, like, Donald Trump, like, his kudos. I mean, it's amazing. But then they'll defend Biden and Kamala under the last administration. So this is Steve Bannon. Love Steve Bannon. He was speaking about the strikes today. Let's see what he had to say today on the War Room.
Chief, if it's used wisely, if it's used for a specific purpose, it gives us peace. So I want the so-called, I don't know what to call them, people running around, warmonger, the sloganeers. This should be an education for you, too. This should be an education for you, too. America, don't you feel relief? Of course you feel relief. Because these Islamo-Nazis were building nuclear weapons to attack us, too, with intercontinental ballistic missiles. Guess what? You can go to bed peacefully tonight. No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Not because of Obama, not because of Biden, not because of the Democrats, not because of some Republicans, because of Donald Trump.
Well, they did. The last three presidents say they were going to do this, and they didn't, and Trump did. So, I mean, I do say he has balls there, but I think this will test both sides. Iran coming to the peace agreement table, as I think they did a couple hours ago, it was reported, and then Israel can't bomb anymore because they took the nuclear program out, right? So now he's testing both sides. That's just what I've heard. Let me know what you guys think.
The lead story in media, one of the hottest stories in the nation right now, is Fox News' Mark Levin nukes shameless nitwit Marjorie Taylor Greene from orbit. Congressman Greene, I know you're here for AI, but any response, observations? Did you feel better going to sleep last night because Mark Levin's on the ramparts on
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
By the way, did you sleep better last night as a nitwit? Did you sleep better, nitwit, because of Mark Levin?
Well, that's quite some name calling from one of Fox News hosts. It was hard to listen to what he was saying with all the screeching, which is why most people I know don't watch his show. But no, I didn't sleep better after neocons and warmongers talked this administration into entering a hot war that Israel started after Netanyahu barely won a vote. Steve barely won a vote by 2 votes. In order to stay in power the day before Israel attacked, an unprovoked attack, Iran. Now, I'm not making apologies for Iran. I have no investment in the terrorist regime of Iran. But the reality is no American slept better after America bombed Iran, because all of a sudden we now have threats on our homeland. We now have warnings from our State Department for Americans overseas. Qatar put out a warning to Americans to shelter in place. Americans in Israel are terrified for their lives, as well as the Israeli people are terrified for their lives because bombs have been falling in Israel. And and Americans all over the world are seriously questioning, is this going to be World War III? So no, I didn't sleep better, regardless of Mark Levin's silly name calling. And I don't think any American is sleeping better after this, Steve.
What's going to happen? You're coming back. Everybody's coming back. They're going to be here tomorrow. You guys are going to get briefings. What's going to happen? Are other voices going to get in to start advising the president, ma'am?
Well, I got to add on one more thing, Steve, and I'm sure you've covered it on your show. Mark Levin was one of the biggest never Trumpers when President Trump was running for president.
That's true.
So it absolutely makes me sick. It makes me want to throw up in my mouth that he's one of the voices that is constantly texting and calling President Trump's phone and showing up at the White House demanding for America to go to every single foreign war on behalf of Israel. You know, I'm really sick and disgusted at that. And it's people like him and Lindsey Graham and all these other people that never really supported Trump in the beginning.
Facts.
People like me, regular people like me donated to President Trump. We showed up at his rallies.
Yep.
We voted for him. We truly supported him. I've supported him the entire time. Mark Levin was a never Trumper. Compared President Trump, claimed that he was the same as Code Pink. All of this horrible attacks on President Trump. And he only supports him now because he couldn't beat him, because people like me supported President Trump and got him elected. And Steve, I've spent 5 years. I've spent millions of dollars, millions of my own money, traveling this entire country campaigning for President Trump, defending him when everyone abandoned him after January 6th. And I would say I represent MAGA far more than Mark Levin or any of these other neocon suck-ups ever will and ever do, because MAGA is not for foreign wars.
Yep.
We are not for regime change, and we are for America first. That's not isolationism at all. That's for fixing our $37 trillion debt. That's fighting for border security. That's fighting for my kids, Steve. My kids are 22, 25, and 27, and I want them to have a future. And I am sick and tired of people like this. These, you know, a lot of these people are going to be dead in 10 to 15 years. But my kids' future matters to me. And right now, their generation can't buy a house. They can't afford insurance. They can't get good paying jobs. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford to buy a car. They can't afford gas. They don't know if they're ever going to be able to save money for their retirement.
Rise up, children with God. I completely agree. I actually had no clue that Israel was in all the politicians, it seems, pockets until very recently. So it's like blowing my mind. I think a lot of countries are in a politician's pocket, but it does seem in regards to the Epstein files not being released, that is probably one of the number one reasons it's not being released, is because Mossad was a part of it, as I've been learning, or that's what I've been hearing.
Because they're barely making it paycheck to paycheck. And I am so angry about this. So all of them have crossed my line. And you want to know what I have that Mark Levin doesn't have? I have a voting card, Steve. I have a voting card because I have a district that believes in the greatness of America, that believes in America First policies, and desperately wants President Trump, his administration, and the Republican-controlled House and Senate to enact and support this. And I tell you what, 6 months in, Steve, and here we are turning back on the campaign promises, and we bombed Iran on behalf of Israel. Yes, it was on behalf of Israel. We're entering a nuclear war, the World War III, because the entire world is going to erupt. And you want to know the people that are cheering it on right now? Their tune is going to drastically change the minute we start seeing flag-draped coffins on the nightly news, on Fox News that brainwashes all the baby boomers, and on CNN that brainwashes all the Democrat baby boomers. And that is exactly how this is going to go down. And, you know, the AI portion, I want to address that, Steve, that's a bunch of crap. They should have never put that poison pill in the House version of the One Big Beautiful Bill in the first place. I am a 100% no vote if it is still there, because I get to vote again. I get to vote on it again when it comes back to the House. And I am not voting for a 10-year moratorium on state rights to make regulations and laws on AI. That is absurd. And the One Big Beautiful Bill is about taxes, energy, and border security. And that's exactly what it should be. So shame on the people that put it out there. That should be separate.
Completely agree. That was the end of that video. As you can hear the background music going in on that, but crazy stuff being said. So according to one of the listeners in the chat, it seems like this isn't true, but someone posted this. So I'm going to look into it after, but he's talking about something being reached, a deal, but that could change. That could change at any minute, folks. But let's see what he's saying about the Iran USA.
Okay, I'm sorry, but like this is becoming so obviously planned out, coordinated, scripted. I mean, this morning we woke up, we had the oil prices going through the roof. Trump says, drill, baby, drill. 1 o'clock, we got bombs dropping on air bases, American air bases in Qatar. And then all of a sudden, Trump, around 3 o'clock says, nope, they're done, guys. They're done. Right here, he says it, they're done. They made their last move, the system. And then we have this. Congratulations, world. It's time for peace. Amen. Amen. Just know that that is a seriously fast-moving timeline of events, right? I mean, if this was a real war going on, or potential war, right? It's all handled, man. The alliance, the Middle East is being liberated. See, America is freeing the world.
Well, that's it of that. But it seems like there might not be a deal on the table. So let's hope that's true. It might not be, but we shall see. And I feel like people who aren't into politics, everyday people, might get this still on what's happening. As I said, I'm iffy on both sides, but I think that this is kind of funny how she puts it together. But let me know what you guys think about this video I'm about to play.
All right, I did a serious video about what's going on in Iran, but now I'm finna break it down in a nutshell what happened, all right? Okay, so from the beginning, somewhere from the beginning. All right, Netanyahu, I call him Yahoo. That's the man over there in Israel, right? He kept saying, hey, Iran got nukes, and I'm going to go and hit their ass up because they got nukes, and they keep saying they're going to wipe us off the map, so I'm going to just hit his ass first. Donald Trump said, okay, let me tell you what's going to happen. All right, I'm going to send my folks over there. I'm going to send Tulsi Gabbard over there, and she going to see if they got nukes. So she went over there with her intelligence team in March, and she said, hey, it looked like they ain't got no nukes. And Trump said, all right, cool, that's fine. They ain't got no nukes. He done went and told Yahoo, listen. She done went over there and checked. Rock and roller Ayatollah ain't got no nukes. She done went and checked. So I'm going to need for y'all to chill out. And like my plan is peace, and we all finna make some bread. Well, Yahoo just wasn't satisfied with that shit because he war hungry. Looked like he want to stay in power forever, and as long as they at war, he gonna keep his seat. So he was like, nah, I know they got some nukes, and I'm finna go over there and strike their ass. Donald Trump was like, hey, player, don't do that. We want peace. Well, Ayatollah Khomeini said, rock and roller Ayatollah, he said, death to America. Trump said, look, I already told you I ain't in that shit. I'm not sending Israel no money. I'm not sending them no weapons. I'm just not in that shit. Leave America out of this. We ain't fucking with nobody. We want peace over here, right? All right, they get into it. Israel go and bomb their ass, and I'm talking about bomb their ass, right? So rock and roll Ayatollah was like, oh shit, oh this how we playing? All right, everybody finna feel it. Donald Trump said, hey, who the fuck is everybody? I just told you, America's not in it. We don't want nothing to do with this, player. I don't know how many times I got to tell you, we want peace. We really want y'all to shake hands, but since y'all on that gangster shit, we just gonna bow out gracefully. They said that shit again, death to America. Everybody gonna feel it, sending out all them threats. So DJT ain't finna take that shit laying down because he always been a G, uppercase G at that. So Trump was like, all right, bet. I'm gonna see what's gonna happen in 2 weeks, and then in 2 weeks, if we ain't broke a peace, then we gonna figure something out. Well, behind the scenes, DJT was like, well, I done found out you got 3 sites where you could have been making nukes. And so since you still talking big shit, big game player, I'm finna send some shit over there, and we just gonna get rid of that shit where you could have been making nukes, all right? Boom. So he go and send 3 strikes. He just obliterated 3 nuclear sites over there in Iran. And when I say nuclear sites, I'm talking about where they could have been making bombs underground, right? So what they dropped could go through, like, I think 20 feet of concrete, like the big shits, right? So they just went over there and they obliterated 3 nuclear sites. So Trump basically, from what I can see, is saying, all right, what you thought they had, I done went and took that shit away. Now you ain't got no reason to keep going over there and fucking with them. I told you I wasn't finna get rid of their supreme leader, rock and roller Ayatollah. He's still over there. And as for you, rock and roller Ayatollah, keep our name out your motherfucking mouth like I told you from the beginning. That's it in a nutshell. Now we gonna see how this shit go. North Korea pipe down, China pipe down. Cause again, we ain't scared of shit now, but we do want peace. Now let's get together, stop all this beef so we can make some bread. That's it in a nutshell.
I mean, I completely agree. What do you guys think? I think she nailed it right on the head. Anyways, this is an AI funniest video I've ever heard about the Democrat Party and today's voters in the Democrat Party, that is. You guys are going to laugh your asses off. They need to put more out like this. When I saw this, I busted up laughing.
What brings you out here today? Climate change, women's rights, trans rights, fascism, racism, veganism, Satanism.
What brings you out here today?
Trans women should be able to use the little girls' room in an elementary school's diet.
What brings you out here today?
Women should have the right to be able to abort 10 years after pregnancy.
Why are you out here at today's protest?
CNN said if we don't show up, democracy is going to die. So here I am.
What exactly are you protesting today?
I'm not totally sure, but I stand with whatever's trending right now.
Why are you out here protesting today?
Because CNN said if we don't, democracy's over, and like that sounded really serious.
It's hilarious.
Because if nobody speaks for minorities, how will they know what to think?
We're here for unity.
Wait, Brady.
So if you don't agree, get the fuck out.
Tell me that is not like in line with today's Democrat liberal voters. It's insanity the way they speak and act in a public setting. Well, thank you guys for watching this live. I will be doing a panel later, like with 4 other people. We're going to be discussing world politics. So I hope you guys join. If you guys want to join the video as well and come join the live stream, you can join as well. Just let me know. Message me on this. Hope you guys have a great night. Yeah, and if you want to join, just let me know. My ex, I don't know if you have X. Do you have X or TikTok? But anyways, if you do, add me on this. And if you guys ever want to join a live, just let me know. Oh, yeah. How exactly did you get dumber? Please tell me. I will wait just for you to explain that, because we are talking about what's going on in the war or in the world. Thank you so much. No, have a great day.